Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Um, my name is Jocelyn Gladhorn, and today we're presenting Jill Castle, the co-author of Fearless Feeding: How to Raise Healthy Eaters from High Chair to High School. Creating healthy eating habits often proves to be one of parenting's biggest challenges, and Jill Castle and Marianne Jacobson have teamed up to provide an essential guide to understanding and improving any child's eating habits. So this is the go-to book for all topics related to healthy nutrition and eating habits. And Jill has practiced as a pediatric nutritionist for over 20 years. And without further ado, let me introduce Jill Castle, the co-author of Fearless Feeding. Thank you. And you turned on your mic?
I think so. Can you hear me back there? Is the mic working? Okay. So I'm going to kind of just walk around and talk to you today. What I want to do is first kind of take broad strokes through the book so you kind of have an idea of what the book has to offer. And then open it up for questions and keep it just really casual and talk about lots of different topics about childhood nutrition. So Fearless Feeding is a book that I hope answers lots of questions and challenges that parents have today. If we look at the olden days, feeding was very different. We ate our meals together. We procured our food from the garden, the butcher, the dairy farmer. We sat around the table. Oftentimes food was placed in the center, passed around. There weren't alternative meals. There weren't alternative entrees. You got what you got, and you decided to eat it or not. So that was sort of our kind of easy time. But now things are very different, right? Meals are, sometimes kids are hungry at meals and sometimes they're not hungry at meals. Oftentimes meals are disjointed and rushed. They might be from the takeout place. They might be from the quick cook part of the grocery store. They might be from the fast food restaurant. Your child may enjoy meals or he may not. He may be a very picky eater and be somebody who creates quite a challenge at the dinner table. Mom may or may not know how to cook. Dad may or may not be home for dinner. So the whole idea of family meals has changed significantly over the last 30 years, and it's created quite a bit of ups and downs with parents in terms of feeding their children. So I wish I had a clicker so I didn't have to come back. So today, though, if we look at what the statistics are telling us, 95% of parents believe healthy eating is important, but only 82% believe that they are somewhat successful in feeding kids healthfully. 80% believe they have no control over their child's picky eating, and 75% of parents give in to their picky eater. 30% of moms give themselves a C, or when it comes to knowing the right combination and mix of nutrients for their baby. And 85% of 2 to 3-year-old toddlers are eating sweets, sweet drinks, and junky foods each and every day. And this is not stuff I'm making up. This is true scientific research. Also, 1 in 3 kids are overweight or obese. Eating disorders are on the rise. Again, scientifically collected information that tells us that in boys and children under the age of 12, this is particularly a rising incidence in eating disorders, and in fact in women in their 40s. Those are the 3 biggest growing groups for eating disorders. ADHD, autism, and food allergies are on the rise. They're increasing. More and more kids are getting diagnosed with attention difficulties and food allergies, making feeding children more difficult. Picky eating lasts longer. Picky eating is a normal stage of child development between the ages of 2 and 5, yet more and more kids are picky beyond age 6. I wrote a piece on my blog about Michael Pollan. He has a 17-year-old son who is a picky eater still. And to me, when picky eating goes beyond normal development, there's something else going on, either behaviorally, medically, the interaction between the parent and the child. That really needs to be uncovered, because being a picky eater as an older child is very limiting. It limits where you can eat, it limits sleeping over at people's houses, and it becomes harder to change it. More nutrient-poor foods are available. I won't comment on our snacks today, but I will just say that everywhere we go, there's an abundance of food that really aren't contributing to our health or to our children's health. They're taking away from it. Just head out on a soccer field or to the church after services, and you will see. More food marketing to children. Children are a target. It's, again, an abundance of research around food marketing to children, and kids are a target of marketers and sports drinks and energy drinks, and there's just a lot of research on that. 22% of children in the United States live in poverty. 16.7 million children live in food insecure homes, which means that they may not have enough food to eat on a regular basis. What does all this create? Fear. Parents who are afraid of making a mistake with feeding their children, of causing an eating disorder, guilty feelings of perhaps not doing their job as a feeder, as a home nutritionist to get their children to eat healthy, but also can create fear in children as well. They're afraid of certain foods. They're afraid of what the dinner meal environment might be like when they get home. Will they be in trouble? Will they be yelled at? Will they be forced to eat foods they don't want to eat? So the whole dynamic really prompted us my co-author and I, to write this book, Fearless Feeding. We knew that many, many moms, she's a blogger, I'm a blogger, I've been in practice for over 23 years. We both knew that a lot of parents didn't have their ducks in a row when it comes to nutrition and feeding their kids. Part of it is because there's this myth that if you just get the food right, you get those 5 servings of fruits and vegetables in, you get your whole grains in, you make sure everything, the fats are healthy fats. If you just get the food part right, your child will be healthy. But we know as professionals that's not the only part where we have to concentrate. We have to actually look at the child on a more comprehensive level. So you know me, I'm one of the authors. Marianne is in San Diego. We came together. She has a blog called Raise Healthy Eaters, and she interviewed me a few times for her eating disorder blog posts and an overweight blog post. So that's how we got to know each other. I had never met her before. She is by trade a writer and a nutritionist. And so it was probably 3 years ago that we said, hey, she's like, I've always wanted to write a book. I said, I started a book this summer, and I want to write the Bible on child nutrition because I know it's not out there. And so we came together and started this process. We were fortunate to get a literary agent, which is very difficult, I am told. We had an easy time of it, and a publisher after that. And so it took us probably a year to write the proposal, which was a over 100-page document to do all the research and create something that a publisher would want to buy. And then 8 months to write the book once we were under contract, and just as an FYI, 9 months for them to produce it. It's a long process. This book was in the works for the last 3 years. So meanwhile, throughout all of that, we're still writing our blogs, we're still raising our kids, she's working, I'm working. But the book itself, I'm going to dig into some of the concepts and the philosophies behind the book, but the book itself is really for infants age 6 months all the way up to teenagers age 18. We started at 6 months because we felt that most moms have already made their decision about what they're going to feed their baby in the first 6 months of life. They're either breastfeeding or they're feeding formula. Where they get hung up is starting solid food. What to start, what foods first, how much, when is it okay to advance textures, when is it, what supplements do babies need, do they need vitamin D, do they need DHA? So we really wanted to start at 6 months and take parents through the entire progression of childhood, essentially. So the book is divided into 5 sections. The first section is infants and young toddlers. The second is toddlers and preschoolers, school-age children, and teenagers. The 5th section is more complex If you have a child with ADHD, what do you do at home to feed them? If you have a child with food allergies, if you have a child you think has an eating disorder, if you have a child who's overweight or underweight, how do you manage that at home? When do you need to go get more help? Or what can you accomplish on your own? We also have a chapter on meal planning. So for those individuals who don't know where to begin, how do you get this meal on the table with my crazy life? We have freeze-ahead options, crock-pot solutions, everything you need to know about organic, eggs, certified, all the information about milk, meat, all of that stuff. Shopping information you need to know, or you might want to know when it comes to choosing foods for your family. And then we also have a chapter called The Parent Trap. So that chapter is really based on how your own history with food and eating from your own childhood may be coloring how you feed your own child. So, for example, some people are raised with authoritarian parents who say, you're not getting up from the table until you eat your peas. And some adults tell stories. Almost everybody has a food story from their childhood, number one. They remember. My big food story was I used to watch my sister shove peas down the radiator grate on the side, and my brother dumped bottles of ketchup into the bean soup my mother used to make just to choke it down, because we couldn't get up from the table until we ate everything that was on the table. That's how I was raised. But that certainly colors how you raise yourself, or your own children. You either follow that same system, which didn't work for you and is likely not going to work for your child, or you reject that system and you adopt a different system, which is a more permissive system oftentimes. So I'm not going to make my child sit and finish this meal. I am going to be more lenient, let him come and go when he wants to, or make another meal for him if he doesn't like what I'm serving. And that doesn't work either. So in each of the child's sections of the book, we talk about the fearless feeding strategy, which we came up with a strategy for feeding children and it is very different from classical, traditional childhood nutrition thinking. In the past, in everything you read, basically, over the last 30 years, 40 years, you will find it just tells you to pick the right foods. Kids need this amount of calories, they need this amount of protein, they need these vitamins and minerals. You get that right, you'll have a healthy kid. What we know, as I said before, it's much more than that. Getting the food right is important. It's about a third of the equation. But we also need to know how we feed children, how that impacts them. So the what of feeding is food and nutrients. The how of feeding is really your parenting and feeding style and the practices that you use every day to get your child to eat. What is the motivation behind getting your child to eat? Are you motivated by just exposing your child to a wide variety of different foods and letting them learn about lots of different tastes and flavors in foods? Or is your motivation that you are going to get those 5 fruits and vegetables into your child each and every day, no matter what? So we really do dig into what that motivation is. And then the why of feeding. Children go through very predictable developmental stages. And because they're so predictable, we can tell you what's going to happen. Like in the toddler years, we know 98 to 99% of children in their toddler years are going to be picky. So parents shouldn't be surprised by that. They should be waiting for it, looking for it, expecting it, and having a plan to deal with it. Okay? It's not like, oh my God, my child's picky. Of course, you'll always hear about the mom who says, my child was never picky. Most kids do have a little bump in the road where they might be picky. Some kids are picky for a really long time and are really sensitive about foods. In the school age years, we know that kids are highly influenced by their peers. That motivates their food choices. How many of you have had a kid come home and say, so-and-so is eating Lunchables, and I want those too? Or so-and-so had these great granola bars, you've got to get them too. Kids who are in school are very influenced by their peers. And if their peers are on the right track and making great healthy choices, that will influence your child too. But oftentimes in today's world, they're not making, healthy choices all the time, and some of that trickles into your child. And then in the teen years, teenagers are trying to figure out who they are. So they're experimenting, and they're going to experiment with food and nutrition too. They're going to diet. They might try to become a vegetarian. They might try to lose weight in a dramatic or drastic way. And so when parents know that these are developmentally appropriate, normal phases, it helps calm them and calm the fear. And we give tools for how to deal with these issues and talk with kids. Just broadly speaking, food and nutrients, we talk a lot in the book about food balance. Our philosophy is there are no saints and there are no devils when it comes to foods. All foods can fit. Really the secret is the balance. We like to see food balanced in a way for children where their children are getting regular meals and snacks every day. I believe every child needs at least a snack. Every teen, at least one snack, because it helps them manage their appetite, helps them manage their hunger. And frankly, I think adults need a snack a day too. It's really hard to go longer than 5 hours without eating and then approach a meal with a normal appetite and eat normal amounts. So when when children become over hungry, they tend to overeat. Right? So snacks and meals help build in that sort of predictable, every 4 to 5 hours we're eating. And then variety. Variety, when it comes to food and children, variety is the spice of life. The more variety you offer your children, the more interest, you'll keep their interest up. You'll keep them still guessing. They won't always know what to expect. And you'll continue to expose them to lots of different foods and therefore lots of different nutrients. So the balance that we talk about in the book is the 90-10 rule. 90% of what kids get each and every day are those wholesome, nutritious foods that help them grow, contribute to their health. So, and of that 90%, we divide those between nourishing foods and half foods. Nourishing foods are your classic food groups. Lean proteins, low-fat dairy or non-dairy substitutes, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, healthy fats. And then the half foods are the foods that aren't as clean nutritionally. So that means chocolate milk offers a lot of nutrients, for example, but it's also packed with added sugar. So that I consider a half food because it does offer children lots of nutrition, but it has added sugar, so we have to really watch the portions and the amount of those foods that a child gets each and every day. 10% comes from fun foods. Those are the sweets, the snacks, the chips, the fries, the soda. That really boils down to 1 or 2 a day for most kids. Shockingly, snack foods, our kids today, 40% of what they eat each and every day come from fun foods. So it's no-brainer. That's why we have a weight problem in our country. We've shifted to eating more processed, sugary, fatty foods, and it's prevalent in our children's diets. So I like to see families work on getting that balance back to 90% wholesome foods and half foods and 10% fun foods. A lot of dietitians will say, a lot of nutrition experts will say they do the 80-20. Has anybody heard that? 80% whole foods and 20%. I particularly don't like to see children eat 20% of their calories from sweets. That's, for an average child, that's 400 calories out of 2,000. That to me is a lot. And I'll also say that if you've got an active, healthy kid who is, trim and playing on sporting teams, you still want to get the balance right because today's eating habits become tomorrow's eating patterns, okay? And so our metabolisms as children are really high and efficient, but as adults they aren't as much. So if you eat a lot of sweets as a child, you will be battling sweets as an adult, trying to moderate those and cut back on those and perhaps be embattled with those foods. Okay, and then we also talk about, in addition to the balance and the what of feeding, we talk about nutrients. We know that parents are concerned about meeting the nutrient needs of their children. Children have over 40 different nutrients they need each day. There's no way, I can't even remember the 40 different nutrients for each age and stage of development. So what we did was come up with the Fearless 5 nutrients. So for each age of development, there are 5 nutrients that we highlight. So that's what we want parents to pay attention to. Total fat, DHA, brain is growing at a rapid rate during infancy, and these are 2 very important nutrients. Iron, zinc, again, the body is at its quickest, most intensive period of growth during infancy. The body weight doubles, triples, the length doubles during infancy, so we are making lots of cells, so we need our iron and our zinc to be on board for infants. And then, of course, vitamin D for bone development during that time. For the toddler, why don't you come up here? Oh, I see what I did, sorry. Calcium, vitamin D, vitamin E, potassium, and iron. So we feel that if parents can target those nutrients, they end up covering a lot of the nutrition that a lot of the other 40 nutrients are partnered with a lot of these nutrients in foods. For children, fiber, we know children are not getting enough fiber in the United States, so we want parents to pay attention to fiber sources. Potassium, iron, calcium, and vitamin D. You'll see calcium and vitamin D on every age because I keep telling my kids, go be an orthopedist. We're going to have a lot of osteopenia in about 20 years because kids are not getting enough calcium and vitamin D. And we're going to have a lot of little old ladies with broken bones in about 20 years.
Are you going to go into detail with foods with this later?
I can when we do, the Q&A. I can definitely do that, yeah. Calcium for the teen, vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin E, and iron, also big nutrients for the teen. So that's just broadly speaking what we do in the book. The back of the book is full of charts, potassium chart, and just a list of foods, how much, quantity of food you need to eat for a certain level of potassium. Same with iron. Every nutrient listed up here is included in a special chart in the back of the book. One of the things that really motivated us was, as a practitioner, I see many families who say, my child doesn't eat enough, get enough calcium, or I'm afraid, or my teenager is deficient in vitamin D. I like to fix everything with food first if possible. That's my first, I go to the food first, let's tweak the food and see how we can get things covered, and then use a supplement if we need to. So we created charts so that you'd be able to go in and say, oh, well, she likes cheese and she likes spinach, but she won't drink milk. Well, there are lots of foods that contain calcium and vitamin D that we can substitute instead of milk. And so we want parents to crunch the numbers a little bit so they can put those answers together for themselves. Okay, so the how of feeding, as I said before, is the parenting styles and practices. And this is a little bit of a busy slide, but hopefully you'll get the general gist. There are 4 different feeding styles, and they're really a parenting style. It's your overarching way of feeding children. And it comes from how you were raised, either because you're repeating how you were raised or because you're rejecting how you were raised and you're changing it up. So authoritarian feeding style is probably the most common. It's the clean your plate club, do as I tell you, not what I'm doing, but you do what I'm telling you to do. There are rules and expectations for eating, and there's very little concern for a child's appetite or their food preferences. You want them to eat that spinach, they're going to eat that spinach. You don't care if they're going to throw up after they eat it because they hate it. You just want them to get it in. That's a very authoritarian way of feeding. The authoritarian parent tends to use the practices of rewarding their children to get them to eat something. So if you eat your broccoli, I'll give you dessert. They tend to restrict food if the eating expectation is not met. You cannot have dessert unless you clean your plate. They also tend to pressure the child to eat, especially the picky eater. Just have another bite. Just take 2 more bites and then you can leave. Okay? That's the authoritarian parenting style. The permissive parenting style is the parent who's oversensitive to a child's hungry. If the child says, "Oh, I'm hungry," they're like, "Let's go find something to eat." You know, they're very highly reactive to a child's hunger. They're highly reactive to their fullness and their food preferences, meaning Jack won't eat plain pasta. I have to make it with olive oil and garlic and this. That's the only way he'll eat it. So there's that oversensitivity to what the child's doing with eating. And there's few expectations for eating. Oh, you don't want to eat that? That's okay. We'll make you something in an hour. It's not a problem. Or, oh, you want to have a brownie? Well, we have, oh, you want a cookie at the store? Oh, we're going to go home and make dinner, but oh, go ahead. You can have a cookie at the store. Well, then the child comes to the table with no appetite for dinner. Parents who are permissive tend to always say yes to food requests. They feel like they're constantly feeding their child. They oftentimes are a short order cook, so they make a meal for the family, but then they go do a side dish for one of the children. And the food choices tend to center around the child. The child calls the shots in terms of what they're eating at home. Neglectful feeding style, there are few expectations for eating, so the parent doesn't really care if you eat or not. And there are low sensitivity to the needs around food. So this parent may not take meal planning or food shopping very seriously, may leave the cabinets and the refrigerator empty for weeks at a time. What this does is just basically make the child insecure around food. They don't know when their meal is coming. They don't know if there will be good food to eat that they will like. And then the fourth way is the authoritative parenting style, which is the 2 pluses, 2 T's, plus plus. This is the good way to feed kids. This is the way in the research. The research is abundant in this area, and it shows that children tend to be more able to self-regulate their appetite with this feeding style. It's responsive to a child's appetite and food preferences, but it's not catering to those food preferences. It takes it into consideration. Meals are structured. They're pretty predictable. On time. Snacks are structured as well. They're very predictable, but there are also boundaries and limits. Here's our meal. If you don't eat it, that's fine. You don't have to eat when we have mealtime, but there's nothing later. You'll have to wait till the next meal or the next snack is scheduled. And so you're reassuring, you're kind, but you're also setting up a boundary for children. Again, predictable examples of this, predictable meal times in a regular place. The parent is in charge of the timing, what's being served, and where it's being served. And the child is able to eat based on their appetite. So the parent is secure in knowing that she made a good meal, and if the child comes to the table and isn't really hungry because they had a big snack after soccer practice, the parent is okay with that, but also reinforces the fact that there's nothing until tomorrow morning at breakfast. I just want to remind you that it'll be you'll have to wait till breakfast. So the parent lets the child decide whether they're eating or not. So the other thing I want to say, we all dip into all 4 of these, really. I've been neglectful, I've been permissive, I've been authoritarian. Primarily, I'm authoritative. That's your goal, is to primarily be a positive, use a positive feeding style. And not beat yourself up too much if you're dipping into neglectful or whatever, but to get back on track and try to be as predictable with food and feeding as you can be. A lot of positive feeding, the authoritative feeding, is based on Ellen Satter's division of responsibility. How many of you are familiar with that? Okay. With this division, the parent and the child has their own separate jobs with regard to feeding. The parent's job is to determine what food is being fed, where it's happening, so at the meal table in the kitchen or in the car or in front of the TV, but the parent is in charge of determining that. What, where, and when, the timing. Okay? So what, where, and when is the job of the parent. Whether they will eat and how much is the job of the child. So the idea is if the parent's really on top of their job, they can let go and not interfere with the child's job. So the child can determine if they're eating or not, and the child can decide how much. which makes a lot of parents who aren't used to that uncomfortable, because a lot of parents like to be in charge of whether the child eats or not. But what the research shows is when parents start to tell the child if they're eating or not, or how much they're eating, then there's a lot of friction and the feeding dynamic gets off. And oftentimes children can adopt different negative behaviors to compensate. For example, if the parent says, if there's a parent of an overweight child and the parent says, you're not having seconds, you've had enough. Well, a child hears that often enough and pretty soon they're sneaking in the pantry when you're not looking. Or they're going hog wild at a friend's house when that parent doesn't care if the child eats or how much they eat. So what we want to do is set up a positive environment, and we want to stick with our jobs and really have faith that your child knows their own appetite, knows what foods they like to eat, and is perfectly able to eat as much or not as much as they want. Remember when they were babies. Remember breastfeeding or infant formula feeding. Remember they pull away when they're done. They know when to stop. They let you know when they're hungry. That appetite regulation is innate. They're born, kids are born with it. We parents screw it up. We screw it up because we're telling them to eat more when they're not hungry. We're making them eat certain foods when they don't like them. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to just throw up your hands and say, I'm never going to give my child something that they don't like. You will. You do. But it's called exposure. It's without pressure. It's like, oh, here's a different kind of food. We're having this for our meal. You can eat it or not. But you present it in a positive way, and if everybody's eating it, the child is more likely to at least take a try. If not, you've done your job of exposure. And exposure works. There's a lot of research that the more you expose a child to different foods, the more likely they are to try it over time. Some kids it takes 15 times. Some kids it takes 50 times. How many adults do you know that still don't like certain foods? It's okay to not like certain foods. We have developed this idea as a culture that kids have to like everything, and they really don't, because adults really don't like everything either. Yeah.
Okay, say you're giving, perfect example is Isla is giving us some foods to prepare for our children, and it's definitely different from how my kids eat. I grew up starch, protein, veggie. That's how I feed my kids.
Yeah.
I don't mix the veggies into the starch or protein or whatever, because that's not how we've eaten. But I've made some things which I know I'll love, but the fear of giving it to my kids, I give them new foods, but now this is new foods prepared differently.
Right.
And so I'm literally sometimes I'm like, I don't even want to give it to them because I feel like it's all, like, they're not going to eat it. So it's, part of me is like, do I give it to them knowing that it's a try phase, but then do I give that backup? Do I be like, fine, and just eat a banana? Like usually our backup is some kind of cereal that has pretty much no sugar in it with milk and a banana or something. Like, but is that being...
When you give a backup,
Because I know they're not, I know that it's going to be, it's a delicious meal, but to them it's so foreign, it's going...
this is the time to teach kids about lots of different foods, though, and when you always offer a backup, they're not incentivized to try anything new, and you get yourself backed into a corner. Now, that being said, a lot of kids like plain foods. They like to know what they're eating. They like things separated. And there are ways that you can do that. You can make Isla's dish, but maybe keep the ingredients separated. I don't know what she's doing, but there are certain foods where you can separate, like pasta primavera. You can cook the noodles, you can do the veggies, you can have the sauce, and you can do like a dinner bar where the kids come in and they make their own thing. What I know from experience that works for kids as a mom and as a practitioner is if you keep them guessing, meaning you're not predictable, you don't always have a backup, you don't always serve the same style, if you keep them on their toes, they will come to the table more interested, wondering what you're doing this time. And if you keep that environment very relaxed, see, they're going to pick up your fear. They will. They'll pick up your fear that you're afraid that they're not going to eat it. Because you're going to come to the table and, oh, I hope you like this. This is new. I want you to eat it. They're going to be more excited about it, being like, you got to try this. It's so great. We're doing this new thing. Or you're going to come to the table saying, if you don't like it, you can have a banana and cereal. send a message to the child that they're not gonna like it and they don't wanna eat it. So
Because
you have to be really
I
relaxed.
feel like
and-
I could do this for a lunch,
Yeah.
or I could give them something, but it's one of those things when they come home and we have that, because that's where her food's great, because I don't have the time anymore. My kid's involved with travel soccer and this and that, so we're just getting home sometimes 6:30, so you need something healthy you can throw together and give to them.
Right.
So if you're cooking and giving to them, and then if they don't eat it, we're starving from this, but
Right.
then you're creating, I just don't know how to get past that hurdle,
Yeah.
where I'm eventually over that, but I used to always do stuff that we try and stuff, but now we're getting into our windows getting
Yeah.
smaller and smaller,
Yeah.
and it's harder and harder to get that healthy meal on the table.
Yeah, and so a healthy meal is a meal that showcases almost every food group, right? So what I often say is when you serve a meal, so say it's some, mixed dish that your kids are unlikely to like.
Like the crock pot.
Okay.
They
So
hate the crock pot food.
side of fruit, gallon of milk, crunchy carrots on the side, or some vegetable, very plain side dishes that they can come to the table and see there's something here I can eat. But what you serve for dinner is what's on that table,
Right.
not sitting in the pantry waiting to be poured into a bowl with milk. So, some parents will just like, I know my kid's not going to eat this, but I'll put a few containers of yogurt out there. I'll put a bunch of bananas or a bowl of clementines. I'll put a gallon of milk on the table. And I really like kids to have themselves. I really like family-style meals, which is in the book, and I'm not covering it here today, but I really like family-style meals where kids can pass around the food and take the food they want and how much they want. And so even if your child doesn't eat that dish that is foreign, they have to pass it. They have to look at it, they have to hold it, smell it, so they are getting exposed. The other thing you can do is a learning plate, which is just a small plate in the middle of the table that just has a little bite of any new food that you have on the table. So they don't have to have it on their plate. A lot of kids are completely at ease when they don't have to have that food on their plate. But if it's on a learning plate, then they can touch it, they can lick it, they can rub it on their lips, they can put it in their mouth, chew it, spit it out politely. That's all part of trying. Yes?
How do you get your 3 children to touch it?
We don't have to get them to do
I
it.
put cash. I'm like, I'll give you $5 if you try this. It's so good.
So does bribery
Nothing.
work? Is bribery working?
No.
It doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work. All of those
They
little
won't even
antics-
touch it.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's the backup meal that gets in the way. That's what causes the problem, because they don't have to touch it, because they're getting something else. Yeah.
So this kind of goes back to your idea of the bar.
Yeah.
The bar idea, because I mentioned that to somebody after we had coffee, and they pushed back and said, well, I get the idea she's proposing, but if I put out, let's say, pasta and cheese and a cream sauce and 5 different kinds of vegetables, my child will still go through that bar and just take the pasta and a little bit of cheese, and will completely skip all the healthy ingredients that I put out to go with the meal.
Right.
I had no answer for that. I mean,
And that's
because,
okay. Number one, dinner is oftentimes the meal where the parents' expectations are the highest and the child's reserves are at the lowest. Most children, if you look at the research, most children have met their nutrient needs by snack time after lunch for the day. So you don't have to be so worried about dinner, number one. Number two, kids are exhausted. More controversy happens at that meal table at night when it really should be a pleasant environment. I often, when I work with moms, I often say, all you have to do is set the meal and cook it. Put it on the table and relax. Have your glass of wine, eat what you want to eat, and don't even watch your kids eat. Don't comment on it, don't react to it. And when they start to say,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm drinking my own.
and when they say, I'm not eating this, I'm not going to eat this, you say, I am so sorry you don't like what's for dinner.
But
This is it.
But then the meltdown happens.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
so hungry.
Right,
And
like
that's
I'm
what
sending
sorry
your
You
kids.
made your
So
choice.
do we do, okay, let's say I do the veggie, because it's the veggie enchiladas.
Yeah.
And they see in that the squash and
referring
the
to a-
beans and the spinach, and I want to cook it because I want to eat it, and they're going to see.
I'll eat anything.
And so I put this in front of them. What can I put in this? I was serve a salad with it. They don't even eat salad. My daughter will eat the leaves. My son won't even go near it. So it's like, so do I do a big fruit salad with it and just,
Yeah.
that's that and that's dinner? And I'd be comfortable if they just,
Fruit salad, bread, milk.
and so they're just.
I always put fruit, bread, and milk on the table with everything I
That's
serve,
maybe
because
what-
they will always eat that.
And
And
that's
if
good
some,
to know.
I'm
And you're
even
okay
my
with
kids
I would
know
If
now.
you put bread on the
Fruit, bread, and
table,
milk.
yeah,
They'll
and
eat just
really
bread.
just bread for dinner.
And then they get up in the next
And
morning.
then can I do cut cheese with the bread too? So
You
they
could,
can- okay, that's fine.
But if they just eat bread, then they get up the next morning and they're starving,
I know, I know.
right? Which is okay. Then your job is to make sure you've got an awesome breakfast for them to eat. To
So what
match
do you
their
do for
hunger.
breakfast?
Yeah, so then, what do you do? I'm back at square one when they wake up.
Yeah, right?
And I'm up all night starving.
Yeah, well, the behavior, the meltdowns at the dinner table are not okay. Basic parenting 101. Your kid throws a tantrum, they're removed from the scene. And it's discipline. It's just, that's what, whatever you do for discipline, a timeout, whatever. The part of the problem is, again, that